Okay, so we are going live. This is the second time I've tried to do this today. I had to create a new link because the software is not feeding into what I was hoping it would feed into. But let me go ahead and notify everybody. Before we get started, give me a moment here for all the technical difficulties. Okay, and I also have to notify the people on Facebook. Okay, before we go bring David in, actually I'm gonna start off first by reading the bios of both guys here tonight or today, wherever you may be. But first, give me a moment here. Okay, so all right, let me go ahead. Let's make sure we get out. Let me note. Give me a moment, folks. Thank you all for your patience and not clicking off just yet, because this is going to be a very exciting show. Okay, so let's get out of that. All right, welcome to Super Soldier Talk. I'm James Rink, and thank you all listeners. Thank you for popping over here in this chat room. I tried and tried and tried, and literally, I think YouTube needs to work on this software a little bit better. But in the meantime, we are rolling, and of course we got David here with us, and David is an akashic reader, healer, telepath, and able to do channel communications with non-terrestrial beings. He currently resides in Nova Scotia and has been involved with programs his entire life, or at least up to 4 years old and up. He recalls being trained in Area 51, where he met Peter the Insider. He also, and he's been on my show before, and he talked about that in the last interview we did. He also remembers being in a facility that trained his shape-shifting abilities, in which I was also a participant of. And we went into that in the other video, and we're not going to go into that today. So go check that other one out. He also recalls experiences of being a super soldier in Kruger and has done missions with zombies and vampires. So welcome. Oops. Yeah, hold on. Let me unmute you. Okay. Welcome, David, to the show. How you doing?
Hey, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me, James.
Yeah, so I appreciate you coming on here. Now, you did a channeled session with Alana and with William Tompkins recently. It was excellent. You did an excellent job. So I really, yeah, I posted that on Super Soldier Talk. I encourage listeners to check that out as well. So we're going to do like our own follow-up here with Dr. Michael Wolf, because Dr. Michael Wolf, actually, he worked for MJ-12, and he created a super soldier called Joe. But I'm going to go into Joe in just a bit. First of all, let's let me read out Dr. Michael Wolf's bio. Dr. Michael Wolf is a deceased scientist, biologist, and physicist who has worked for nearly 20 years on the Black projects initiated by NASA, U.S. Air Force, Navy, NSA, Pentagon, and DoD. Dr. Michael Wolf worked at Area 51, S4, Wright-Patterson Airforce Base, and the Foreign Technology Division. That's where they took all the Roswell stuff. Indian Springs and Dulce. I don't know much about Indian Springs, but I don't think we're probably not even have time to go into all this stuff, but we'll do as much as we can here. Where for 5 years, he met with extraterrestrial beings every day and shared living quarters with them. He served as a scientific consultant for the American President and NSC, which is National Security Council, and on ET-related matters, and he was director of ALPHACOM, a team within Majestic 12, which was in charge of ultra-secret military black projects. He has an MD in neurology, a Ph.D. in theoretical physics, a BS in biogenetics, a JD in international law, and a doctorate in computer sciences. ALPHACOM's mission was to reestablish relations with EBEs, extraterrestrial biological entities, commonly known as aliens, with whom the American military has been in trouble with due to destroying ET spacecraft in order to steal technology. And we've discussed this on our show multiple times on the exopolitical situation here on this planet. ALPHACOM was also responsible for collecting all information about different EBE species present on Earth and in the universe. ALPHACOM had also been tasked with engineering exotic technologies recovered from the Roswell incident in 1947. He was like any other civil engineer work on these projects, closely supervised by the military and paramilitaries hired by the cabal, which reported exclusively to the president. He had an encrypted telephone line in his home, which was to remain free at all times in direct communication with the Oval Office. And of course, he died in 2000, so this would have been the Clinton presidency and maybe the Bushes, and I don't know how far back we're going to go here, maybe even Reagan. The MJ-12 ALPHACOM group had already was in the process of disclosing the truth to the public, but certain, I guess they had their hands held behind their back with, I guess the first time they were trying to do this was during the Reagan administration with Mikhail Gorbachev and the UN director. They were intimidated the same day when they gathered in New York to prepare an announcement to the world. So Wolf has been regarded by his peers, as a successive president and a scientific genius. It should be also noted that he was genetically modified human by the EBE species called the Nordic from Altar Aquila, which is much more advanced technology than ourselves, as well as, of course, in the Greys. Oh, okay. Different EBEs, including, I guess he was working with, are the Alliance, which is a humanoid collective affiliated with a larger collective known as the Corporate, and a group of EBE species of reptilians called the Greys. I didn't think Greys were reptilian. I don't know. Maybe the translation is biased. Maybe a little bit better. I'm not quite sure on that one. But the Nordics are in contact with EBEs of species belonging to the Federation of Worlds, FOW, or the Federation of the Andromedans. And while the reptilian collectives and Greys have pledged allegiance to a conglomerate called the Unified Races of Orion and known as the Draconian Empire, Majestic 12 has been and is in contact with representatives of these three major confederations. Okay, I'm just a little bit more to this bio. Everybody stay put here. Hopefully you're not, this is important information to know here. Wolf has been in contact with the Greys throughout his work, working with humans and exotic technologies, again, with Roswell, as well as Greys with Zeta Reticuli, in which he became close friends with Colta. And that can be seen in the book, on his book, Catchers of Heaven. I should probably pull that up in just a bit. I'll show you that. And his book's on Amazon. I was going to get it years ago. Now it was like $400 because it's out of print. But I do actually have a PDF copy of it. Somebody who did have a book in it. Anyway, the point is, we can discuss. Anyway, we'll discuss a little bit more about his book in just a bit. His book collaborated his confessions, his deathbed confessions, about the ET relationships here on planet Earth, as well as information about the United States being in possession of anti-gravity and zero-point energy. This free energy technology present everywhere in the universe is infinite, and once revealed, will allow the world to move from its current military development to civilian development and to travel beyond the speed of light and give humans, or here on planet Earth anyway, access to interplanetary travel and possibly conquest of space. So, and of course, clean up poverty, clean up the planet and poverty and create jobs. So the cabal does not want to release this tech because it will lose their power and control. We know that. And according to Wolf, the only technologies developed to date from these contacts, at least to the public, are cloning, microprocessors, fiber optics, Kevlar, portable scanners, and of course, SDI, the Star Wars Initiative, Strategic Defensive Initiative. The UFO community first became aware of Dr. Michael Wolf in July '96 with his book Catchers of Heaven, and then of course that book took 15 years to make because he was waiting to get permission to release it, and then he died of cancer in September of 2000. So without further ado, welcome everybody here, and maybe David, was there anything I should add to that?
I can't imagine.
Okay. And audience members, if you have any questions, go ahead for Dr. Michael Wolf. Once we bring him in, go ahead and put it in there. We'll try to get to it all here, because I do want to be respectful to David, because I told him we're only going to be doing this for maybe an hour, but maybe I can try to get him up to an hour and a half. I don't know if I'm going to torture him too much, because I think it does take a lot out of you to channel, right?
It's just if he doesn't have permission to move, then my body gets really stiff while I'm channeling, because he can't move my body. So, we normally make micro adjustments all the time to become more comfortable when I'm channeling. I can't. So.
Okay. All right. So we'll try to limit this maybe to hour 15 minutes. So, what's the next step in all this? Is there how about you, David? Was there anything in particular that you wanted any questions for Dr. Wolf that you wanted me to ask on your behalf?
Honestly, I have no questions. I just know that he's a good soul. When I connected to his energy initially, he was very vibrant, and I can tell he's very intelligent. He's very on cue, and he's starting to come through now. So I just want to tell the audience a little bit about channeling. So I can change my vibrational frequency to match that of his soul. And what that does, it allows me to channel his essence, if you want to call it that, his soul. Now, he had a heads up in advance, Michael Wolf, that I was interested in channeling him. So he was kind of in the background, just waiting on standby mode, essentially, to come forward at this moment. So he is very excited to come in, and he says there's lots of stuff to talk about. I actually, personally myself, don't know anything about him besides what James just said. And so I did everything I can, to keep the channeling as pure as possible. Just like I didn't know anything about Elena's person that I channeled as well. So this is all new to me. So I'm excited to get going, and if there aren't any questions, I can get into a state where I can channel him, and we can get started with your questions, James.
Excellent. Go ahead. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, David.
All right, wonderful. One moment, please. This is great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the pleasure is ours. Thank you, Dr. Wolf, for joining us. You're quite famous here in the UFO circles, and and actually it brings us a lot of sadness that you're not here, considering how brilliant you are.
Not brilliant compared to some of the people you're not able to see or hear about.
Yeah, understood. So first of all, thank you for joining us, and I guess we'll go ahead and get going here on the questions. How about could you comment about where you are right now?
Well, right now I am in many places at the same time. Human understanding of particle physics and the quantum theory is very limited, unfortunately. If I was to come back right now, I would love to share so much information with you guys. There's just so many great things to learn and understand about the science that exists of the universe. And really, if we understood anything about planetary physics, it is quite different than universal physics. So it's important to say that firstly.
Excellent. So going into my questions here, were you aware of a secret space program during your time here on planet Earth?
Yes, of course. There are many programs that I moved in and out of throughout my progression, throughout my development as far as my rank went. So because of that, I was running into these groups all the time. And sometimes I'd jump onto particular crews, missions, and things of this nature because I was important to do a particular task on the craft or whatnot.
Certainly. Yeah, I know that was more of a general question, but we can go into more specifics later on. But I wanted to go into ALPHACOM. Could you possibly give us a brief history of ALPHACOM? Because, like for instance, who was instrumental behind its creation, and are they even still around today? And maybe if you had a message for them, perhaps they might listen to this video.
Well, that'll be very interesting because I have a lot of friends in these groups. A lot of people I have had long relationships with as well. So ALPHACOM was initially established in 1954. There are branches in time where it was created earlier. So just to wrap your mind around it, we'll say 1954 to get a linear perspective on the matter at hand. Now, with that in mind, you want names of people that we don't want to get anybody in trouble at this time. Now, we know that it's cool to get names out. It's a rad thing. And we want to help as best as we can, but we know that there's limitations to what we can actually do without getting people in trouble. And with the respect to that, we want to keep the names to a minimum if possible. But if you have any other questions, we'll definitely address them.
Well, if we could start with President Eisenhower. Was he involved in instrumental in its creation?
Instrumental, I wouldn't say so. He had a part in the partaking of policies and red tape that we had to go through in order to commence with the project. Now, there are many people that were much more instrumental than him in order to do this task. And that would be the scientists, the physicists, my friends, and close comrades. There are many others, of course, and it was also military backed as well. So there are many different components that came together to create this project. And because of that, there are many people that you could thank to bring this thing all together.
Was MJ-12 created due to a concern of the NAZI takeover of the MEIC? In particular, the flyover by all the NAZI aircrafts over Washington, D.C., which were buzzing from Antarctica.
Well, if you imagine a child with a toy, he's going to want to keep that toy if he's the only one with it. Now, if another child, say in a preschool or something like that, sees that toy, he might want to take it. And if he can't take it, then he'll make one of his own, or he'll get his mom to buy it or something like that. So in the same way, they had more advanced tech than we did. And we wanted to really come forward in our understanding of this technology, because as physicists, you have to understand, this is the greatest thing that we could have ever imagined in our whole lives. And to embrace something of this level of technology, we had to totally change our understanding in order to even comprehend the technologies that synergize together to work to create a common goal, which was the anti-gravitational craft at the time. So we came together, we created our own craft, and that was just the beginning.
Question from the audience member. What do you know about Sesh Haru's handprint book? And what do you know about the airships of 1850 to 1890? We can maybe just start with Sesh Haru's handprint book.
Sure, yeah. This book was created by someone who was definitely very close to non-terrestrials. The book was essentially an automatic written specimen where someone would have channeled information into this book. Now, the book contained a lot of wonderful things, a lot of we would call them secrets, because the information that came from the book would be automatically classified as at least top secret to a high degree. Now, the book contained information that we were able to extract, to take information from. And we use that in a couple of our projects that we created. So we have this book to thank for several things that we worked with.
Excellent. Thank you. What do you know about the airships of 1850 to 1890? And that's from the Sonoran Aerospace Club, I think in Southern California.
Yeah, we're just trying to get a lock on time that you're referring to, because all species have craft, and especially during any time. It's only the humans that didn't really have craft at that time. So we don't know which craft you're talking about. It's not a very specific question.
All right. Yeah, well, we can just move on because I got so many more questions. Okay. During your time at MJ-12, did they reveal to you a timeline, a future disclosure process? At least, I know you said between 2000 and 2005, a lot of disclosure is supposed to take place, but here we are in 2020, and it really still hasn't happened on a public, the government's anyway, admitting to it.
Yeah.
So what are your projections now?
Well, there was a lot of plans for people on deathbed to do their confessions. Unfortunately, since the blackmail protocol of the government has limited many of these people from actually speaking of their deathbed confessions due to the complications and things that'll happen with their family. Now, there are only a few brave people that have been able to come out with their secrets, like McElroy. I apologize. Her name is Matilda McElroy. Now, she also did a deathbed confession similar to the magnitude that we wanted to have to come out from the 2000 time. Now, unfortunately, like we said, many people were so afraid for their families, not for themselves. They didn't care about themselves. They cared about their families, and they knew the cruelty of the groups that they're working with and the potential that they can just potentially kill their entire family lineage. So because that was pushed back. Now we're dealing with a new time. Things are changing. People that were in power at the time have shifted to other places. And because of that, the ground is softening. And we're saying that because it's not soft yet. But there are people that are coming out. They're becoming braver and braver. And because of people like Matilda, they were able to establish a foothold and say, well, she did it. Why can't I? So regarding your timeline, yeah, time could be a confusing thing. And once you're deceased, it's even, well, it makes sense. But it takes some time to get there. And once you're there, it's too late. So you can't usually bring that time back and understanding back unless you're doing something like this. So.
Can you confirm that the secret projects had access to time travel technology?
Yeah, I can confirm that.
And
go ahead. You apologize.
Would they use that time travel technology to go back and stop whistleblowers and people who are about to disclose?
A lot of the time travel that I was aware of was used to catch ships before they actually landed on Earth. Now, there was a lot of space pirates, if you want to call them that came down to the planet just to steal species of flora. Now, there were less species that were interested in the fauna because a lot of times there's a lot more work that has to be done on a craft to be able to maintain the life support of a physical living creature, rather, and especially if they want it to be able to reproduce due to radiation, due to pressures and vibrational compatibilities as well. So most often the space pirates, if you want to call them that, they would come down and steal plant species. So they had biocontainment units that were on the craft that were able to sustain the life for a prolonged period until they reached their destination, which would be a lab, wherever they're located at. Now, with this in mind, this is primarily my understanding of what they use the time travel for. They would intercept the timeline where the craft is going to land, when it is going to land, and then they would be there using telemetry and things of that nature to intercept the craft, catch the inhabitants, remove them, and do their thing. So,
Yeah, and that ties into another question I had here about how the cabal were violating their agreements with the EBEs, because for a time period the cabal was attacking the ETs and trying to steal their technology, and they were initially the agreements were asking for cooperation and collaboration. So how did it actually de-escalate? Maybe you can give us a little idea of what the cabal was doing on the violation part.
the thing is, with these people, they'll do anything that they can to get whatever they can. There are rules. We got something in our eye. Just a sec. Yeah, sorry about that. Now, these people will do whatever they can to anybody they can to get whatever they can. And because of that, there were additional galactic protocols that had to be portrayed over what was already existing. Now, the cabal knows about these protocols. They know about the regulations. They know about the rules, but they don't choose to follow them. Now, they do whatever they can, like we said, to get the technologies that they're not allowed to have. That's their agenda, essentially. Now, because of that, they keep getting slapped on the wrist. The beings that are working with them are too kind. They understand that we're babies reaching for another baby's rattle, and that the rattle won't do them any harm. We're talking about these other groups. But to the baby, the rattle is a tool, it is a weapon, it is a sound maker, it's a way to have fun. So that's what these technologies are to the cabal. But compared to the non-terrestrial species that are having them, they don't really mind that much. But the humans keep breaking the rules, is the important thing, and they're not allowed to. So that's slowing down the progression of our ability to move outwards into space legally, we'll say.
All right, thank you. So this next question, part of it was information that was relayed to me. I unfortunately I didn't save the notes and I didn't memorize the exact details, but it relates to a 70-year treaty with the extraterrestrials signed in roughly around 1951, which is supposed to end around August of 2021. That basically dictated ET would not make direct contact with the world population. Instead, they would work directly with the cabal, giving them technology which they would release to the public in a slow manner. That way, the population would be slowly groomed to be ready for first contact. However, the cabal violated their agreements many times, stealing technologies from the extraterrestrials instead. But the ETs had more honor and continue to honor their agreement. So can you confirm that a treaty like this was actually signed, and is it going to end in August of 2021?
That treaty has been amended many times, and for a very good reason. As you should know, you should never have all your eggs in one basket. Because of the, we'll say, polarity for this reason, of the cabal, the understanding that they're like a child, they're like a baby that wants a new rattle. They always want the new rattle. They must have a pile of rattles right now. So the policies had to be amended. That was because we say we because we're working with other groups right now. But the groups that are babysitting us, we'll say, they have been using other methods of communication to help with disclosure at this time. Now, we say this because we're referring to channelers. We're referring to mediums. We're referring to light language speakers and things of this nature, telepaths. These people, excuse me, these people are bringing forward information that should have to go through the cabal, but the cabal is not mature enough. They're still children, so sometimes the information has to be passed through a more mature conduit in order for it to come forward.
Well, can you confirm that the treaty is going to end in August of 2021?
Yeah, as we stated, the treaty was amended several times, so it's probably more likely to be 2034 or something of this nature.
Oh, okay. So, all right, well, okay. So let's see, your next question would be, what is the National Security Council's Special Studies Group?
National Security Council Special Study Group. Just a moment here. We have worked here briefly. It's like this room is something of a library. There's many people that go here for information that can be, it's like a very secure library, essentially. Now, a lot of information in this library partakes to particle physics. There's wonderful sections on physics, telemetry, all the things you need to know to build a spaceship, essentially. Now, there's a lot of information that's been compiled over the years from stolen craft, from hacking into the consciousness matrix of craft and downloading the schematics and the technical jargon, we'll call it, of ships. And it's been put in this particular place. Now, with the understanding that this information exists, you need a high level of clearance, obviously, to be able to access this. But I have been here, and the information has benefited me in my development of the particular craft that we were working on. So,
is that the same as the Jason Society or Jason Group?
You know, we have many names of different groups. So, yeah, we kind of picked. So the Jason Group, we had different affiliations. We're just trying to describe this to you here. Now, people that worked on spaceships, they could be called Jason. People that worked on living beings that were non-terrestrial in nature, they could be called Sam or Samuel. People that worked on laser technologies, they could be called Jessica, for example. These are all, for example, names now. So it depends which group you work with. That gives your affiliated name. So.
And you can confirm that you are one of the 32 members of the Jason Society?
I can confirm that.
Okay. Yeah. It seems like a lot of the other members are a bunch of really bad people, or maybe that since changed, hopefully.
It's a mixed bag. It really is, because many people have different agendas in these programs. And now that I can see from my perspective, from where I am, there's a lot of higher ups. I'll just say it. There are galactics that are taking over bodies of humans to do things within the projects. Now, if you want to call it possession, it's not quite a possession, but it is a control over the being temporarily to perform a function until their mission and objective is done. Now, through this method, they're able to extract information and do particular things that serve their agenda. So the people in these projects, they're not all good-natured, and the ones that aren't good-natured are easier to grab a hold of with these beings. We don't want to give them a particular credit, because they come in all shapes and sizes. as the more sensitive the information is, the more appealing it is to groups that they want this kind of stuff. So yeah, that we hope that addresses your question.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can bring you back in again because there's a lot of questions we can certainly go down in Jason and MJ-12, which I really don't want to touch into right now, but I want to say thank you for answering that. Moving on to, yeah, thank you. Moving on to the next question. What can you tell us about the chemtrail agenda?
Actually, the chemtrails were created a long time ago. 1955 to 1960, there was a program created to start this program. Now, it was a we're searching for a term here, sorry. Depopulant, we'll call it. It was a program designed to reduce reproductive rates of humans. There are a lot of things in the human body that can be affected by subtle things. We are amazing, amazing creatures that work in a quantum way. Well, our physical body works in a linear way, but our soul works in a quantum way. And because of that, there are things that can interfere with certain systems within our body. Now, the interference that comes into play affects the reproductive system several generations down the line. And you won't initially notice anything. Some sensitive individuals may notice some brain fog. They may notice some distortion of their thoughts to a subtle means, but it's not a mind control thing like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, well, and I have another guest on my show that's gone more into the mix of compounds and chemicals in the chemtrails itself. Unless if you have anything you want to add to that, if you have any knowledge of what they're actually putting in there, it'd just be nice. It'd be good to get your point of view on that.
We'll say that barium is not good for the human body. I think that, so we can get into this if you like, but yeah, okay. We'll say barium. Now, each element that's in the chemtrail, if you want to call it that, it's really more of a conglomerate of chemicals slash minerals slash protons and electrons. Now, as it is combined together in this state, it's like a quantum slurry. It changes the energies that are projected down from these clouds. There's a lot to talk about with this subject, so we apologize. But anyway, each one of these minerals take part in a different element. Some take part in holding it together as a quantum field. Some take part in its effect on the human body. Some take part in its ability to drop from its current location. And I know there's gravity, obviously. But we want it to drop faster. Well, that was the goal at the time. Because it can just be carried by the wind often enough, and it won't reach its particular mark, which most often is densely populated cities and things of this nature. So anyway, we hope this answers some of your questions.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, we can save some of that for later on because I wanted to actually go more into the super soldier alignment projects, and that's half my questions are related to that. And so let me go ahead and start diving into that at this moment.
Sure.
Let's start with the first question. I know you've already answered it in one way or the other, at least when you were alive, but just to go ahead and confirm, did you work at Area 51 or S4?
We worked at Area 51 and 52.
Okay. And what were your job duties and what was your life like during that time?
Well, one moment, we're just adjusting here. There was many things that I had to do, and you can imagine a life living underground for a long time. It can get really uncomfortable. Humans require sunlight. And without sunlight, certain things don't function right. You get depressed. There are things in the body that don't operate at a proper level because of that. I was unfortunately affected by that for a long period of time, and it was affecting my work. Now, I had my quarters. There was a small steel box, essentially. Don't think too small. Not that small. It wasn't literally, I was sleeping in a cage, but it was a nice room, approximately 20 by 20 feet. And these were my living quarters. Now, we apologize because we kind of missed the question here because I got sidetracked, but can you repeat it?
Yeah, I was just wondering what life was like and what your job and duty was during your time there. I suppose, I mean, I guess I looked at all your academic accolades here, so I'm assuming it was in line with that. But yeah, if you wanted to elaborate on that, feel free.
Sure. Well, we'll just talk a little bit about the base because I know there's a lot of people that are curious about that. Now, once I left my room, there was a line. There's always lines on these floors, okay? And each line is a particular designation for what it is that you do. Now, as long as you follow your line and you have your tag, which is color coordinated to your line, as long as you're on your line, you're good. But if you go off your line, there's a beeper that starts to go off. And you can get into a lot of trouble if you're too far off your line. So primarily my job was, well, I'd live, sleep in my quarters. And when I was working, I would work in my workspace. So it wasn't that far from my living quarters, as most of the scientists that were working on the same particular project where our rooms were all right next to each other. So we were able to work with each other, talk after work and things like that. So there was the ability to have friends, which was cool, but it wasn't a lot of fun things to do. There was some holographic tech that we were able to use, which was very exciting. But for the most part, like I said, the sun is the thing we miss the most. So.
They wouldn't even let you go outside and spend a couple hours. You were basically held hostage.
You don't want to call it hostage, but it's pretty close to that. It's like you can do whatever you want while you're in this cage, but you're still in a cage.
You couldn't go a secret trip to Vegas on the airline there, Janet.
No.
Huh, okay.
Not us. There are other people with different classifications, and different what's the term we're searching for? Clearances.
Yeah. Well, could you comment about your relationship with was it Colta? Because apparently he got shot because he stepped over one of those lines. Why don't you tell us that story?
Very well. He was a friend of mine, good friend. We knew each other for several years. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. He's a curious guy. Scientists are curious people. We need to learn new things. We need to discover. We need to create. And if we get bored, we need to explore. It's just the way that we work. Now, because of that, he was very curious about this place. I don't know exactly where he was going, but he had mentioned that he was, I don't want to say going offline, because that sounds very ironic. But he was going off the beaten path, we'll say. And his curiosity got the best of him, unfortunately. The guards that are at Area 51 and 52, even by extension, they're not nice people. They're people that they have one job, that is, if you're offline, then you don't matter, essentially. Now, the scientists are some of the people that are cherished. They get a couple warnings before they're before they're harmed. Now, they're treated very aggressively if they're still found off of the line. But if they are offline anyway, you know what happens. You can get killed. So he was on his journey through curiosity and he got killed. It's unfortunate.
And apparently they shot him with some kind of bullets that had lead in it, and then you did something to help out, or is that not what happened?
Well, we do everything we can to help our kin, our brothers, our friends. Now, it didn't matter if it was him or somebody else. I would have done everything I could to help him. Now, unfortunately, he had several slugs that were in his chest through the back. And yeah, there's a lot of toxic chemicals, components in lead that leach into the bloodstream. And as they do that, it can affect the nervous system. And unfortunately, the shots that were sent were a bit too close to the spine. And it caused paralysis of the body, which paralyzed the lower half of the body. And he was not able to function properly.
So why didn't they use a regeneration tank to bring him back unless they didn't want to?
The thing is, these people, they have great ability to do wonderful things, but they choose not to. That's one of the reasons why I'm here. There's information that has to come forward, and they have the information, but they won't give it up. Now, they have regen tanks, yeah, you're absolutely correct. But they won't use them to people that aren't loyal to what's happening. Say if I jam my finger in a door and my finger came off, they'd help me as long as I was going with the flow, going with their rules. But if I keep breaking the rules change and they won't work with me anymore. So this is what happened.
Yeah, that was the line of my next question about Area 51. Apparently, it's being run by Project Paperclip Third Reich NAZIs, some of which are now 120 to 140 years old. Can you confirm that this facility is basically run by these individuals?
Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of my work, I wouldn't know the upper politics of Area 51. Like I said, I was essentially a prisoner inside of this base for several years at a time. And because of that, I wasn't able to go off my line. It was, it's kind of like forced labor for a brilliant mind. It's essentially a waste because we're so curious, we want to explore and understand things as they are. And we're not allowed to understand some of the people, they become suicidal actually. So that's why the hologram technology was so beneficial to us. It allowed us to see our families. It allowed us to reconnect with friends, even though it's just through a simulation. It still helps a lot. So regarding who is running the top end of Area 51, that's beyond my understanding. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people on that base that aren't quite right. And I'll say that because you look at them like they look like normal people. They walk rather normal, a little bit different perhaps, but they're just different. If you talk to them, their minds are completely different. And I don't know if it's because they have other consciousness that's not human, or perhaps they're non-terrestrials, or they're perhaps some being that's been alive for that long that they've just disassociated from life itself. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, okay, understand. All right, so next one is more of a comment that you made about Area 51, and just briefly here. You said Area 51 is a sprawling city the size of Rhode Island, which continues to grow and has a sister base called S4, some 12 miles away, and another named Indian Springs. It employs hundreds of civilian and military and has at least 8 different ongoing black projects with an annual budget of $2 billion. Of course, this is back in prior to 2000. So There's an intense security outside with martial law inside, and it's patrolled by elite guards. Some scientists live at the base for 6 months at a time. While their bedrooms are basic, the ETs live in their own magnificently designed apartments. There are also shopping malls, military-style shops, and leisure areas, including swimming pools, gymnasiums, and basketball courts. The food is also excellent. So I was just curious, can you give us an idea what the current population of that whole facility, basically the size of Rhode Island, how many people are down there?
It's like, that's a difficult question to answer. Because if you just put yourself into this, use your imagination for a moment. Imagine you're inside of an ant nest, and you're in one room. You can only see the pathway in and the pathway out. You can't see the rest of the matrix of tunnels that exists within the nest. So there are many branches off many tunnels in this regard, and there's many secret groups that are black operative, we'll say. Now, because of this, a lot of these people go unknown. So there is way more than I could ever imagine. But I would say there's at least, at the base that I was working at, there's at least 100,000 people. Now, we understand that number is really high. It may seem like a lot of people, but because we work quite closely together, because, well, there is limited space, although we are digging downwards, and it continues to grow like one of those honey stir sticks. You can imagine that. You have the long shaft of the handle. That would represent an elevator, perhaps. And then at the top of the honey stir stick, you have a small platform, and then an increasingly larger platform, and then an increasingly larger platform again. So each one of these platforms represents a level that exists in the Area 51. And because of these platforms, you can totally isolate layers of people. Now, in order to get down to lower levels of classification, clearance, we'll say, you have to have your clearance to get there. And that's where you get to the more sensitive information at the bottom.
Understood. Thank you very much. Do you have any information on how many levels deep it is now? Maybe how deep does it actually go down into the earth?
Now, I have worked with some really sensitive information. I've worked with some non-terrestrials. I've worked with some time-bending shit, I'll call it. And I wasn't at the bottom. So I don't know what's at the very bottom, but I know that I was down very deep. I did some work on the 17th layer and 18th, 19th, and some on the 24th layer. But there are other layers, and it almost seems like people that reach the bottom, either they're aliens, or we shouldn't use that word, either they're a non-terrestrial species or some exotic race, or hybrid human mixed race with non-terrestrial genetics, we'll say, that reach the bottom. Now, there's a tram system that runs at the bottom, and it connects to some other bases. But the bottom layer before the tram system, that's where the queen bee is. You know what I mean? That is where the juiciest of information goes, to my understanding. That's what we always said at base anyway.
Do you have any information on how fast those trains travel and the dumb systems?
Well, they move incredibly fast. Some of them move, they have different models. So some of them move faster than others, but 1,000 miles per hour would be, what's the term we're searching for?
Average, standard?
That's not the term, but that's okay.
Maximum?
There's ones that go a lot faster than that. We have tunnels that go 3,000 even. Now, it's a vacuum sealed tunnel, and it's like shooting a ball through a straw with a spitball, for example. There's a vacuum seal that goes around it, and it allows it to move without friction. So because of that, the system can move quite quickly and with little to no resistance, besides air pressure resistance, which is removed because it's in a vacuum. So there is some air still in the system, so that does create some resistance, but for the most part, it's pretty smooth ride.
Excellent. And I'm assuming you've been on in that. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And also, can you confirm, is there a jump room in Area 51 connected to other jump rooms around the planet, even Mars?
Now, there are a bunch of places that you can jump. I didn't really get into that, but I have talked to people in cafeteria about stuff like this. My curiosity can get the best of me as well. Now, there are other people that work in these, it's like a field, essentially. Like I said, we had our group, they're working their group, and their work is with regarding portals, wormholes, vibrational oscillation, which is the understanding of changing one's frequency to match that of the portal. This is a science that we have. And once you match the vibrational frequency of the portal, then you're able to move through it, or wormhole, or Stargate, whatever you wish. So I can't personally talk about this technology because I don't know much about it. That's really not my specialty, but I know they exist.
Well, can you confirm if you actually went through those jump rooms?
I got close to a portal once, and I can just describe to you if you want to hear about it.
Sure.
Now, when you get close to these portals, your body begins to change, and it's almost like the hair on your arm sticks up. Now, it depends how close you are. It depends how big the portal is as well. But as you get closer, approximately 15 feet away, some of the larger portals, you can start to feel the energy of it. And your mind starts to go to different places when you're around them. So it's important that you have good fortitude, we'll say mental fortitude, because if you're in this field for too long, you'll have to go to med bay. So you want to get in the portal and get out. That's the goal, because the energy around the portal, this quantum field, is in flux all the time. And depending on where it's going, it can cause massive fluctuations in your natural auric field. Now, because of these natural fluctuations, it distorts you in different ways. And there are people that are designed to restore people back to their original state, but you don't want to be there. So,
when you travel through a portal, do you physically die and then on the other side reanimate?
no, that's not true.
Okay, thank you. And okay, well, all right. So I guess next question would be, did you know David at Area 51? Because apparently David spent some time there.
I didn't know him. Now, I've heard of these kids that work on Area 51. They have crazy abilities. I've seen aliens. I've seen non-terrestrial species, as we should say. Some of these kids were hanging out with these guys all the time. But I didn't directly know him on base. But there were several children from the ages of 5. Yeah, they go that young. It sounds stupid, and it is. But from about 5 years old all the way up to 16. And I say children because there's obviously adults with great abilities too, but it seems like they really hit their stride psychically when they're younger. For whatever reason, you just tend to lose your abilities that kind of peter off as you age. So they get them when they're young and they have no limitations. And they're able to pretty much do anything, some of these kids. So yeah, I didn't personally know him.
Understood. Thank you. All right. So the next one is actually I'm going to comment a little bit about from your book. You mentioned you were doing research in human cloning that was being perverted by the cabal to create a superhuman super soldier who would, under mental programming, mindlessly follow immoral orders. For example, in Project Sentinel, you helped create a clone which would replace U.S. Marine grunts with a human robot counterpart known as J typing Omega E Delta 2, or Joey for short. Joey spent 365 days growing in a cloning tank, and from the beginning, the military viewed Joe as a failure, as he would cry when ordered to kill. Even with sophisticated brainwashing techniques, he would fail to follow immoral orders. Eventually, this project was scrapped, and the military ordered you to terminate Joe. But instead, you destroyed the facility, smuggled Joe out, and gave him a new identity and placed him in hiding where he remains today. Can you confirm, is Joe still alive, and what was his special and unique abilities?
Sure. Joe is alive today, thank God. I'm so glad. The poor guy has been through so much. He's a special individual. If you like, we can go into where we got the DNA to make him. And now he is rather unique because he was able to break the programming, the mental programming that others weren't able to break. And I seen him as a friend, as someone that was extra special. And I couldn't imagine what they would have done to him if he wasn't taken from the base. He had special abilities as well. He could jump through time relatively easily. He could shift his, we will say, dimensional oscillations. So he could go from dimension to dimension and from layer to layer. And that is how he escaped. With my help, I was able to give him proper coordinates to help him flash in and out or blink, whatever term you wish to use, essentially. Yeah, the channel doesn't have the vocabulary for this term that he did, but that's okay. Now, I want to talk about this because I think that this is important to your channel. This is important to the global human consciousness, and that is the understanding of the super soldier program. Now, that is correct. I was working on clones, but the clones that we were working on, we had gotten DNA from other sources. Now, understand mummies, ancient beings that have been locked away in tombs, beings that have been stuck in cryopods. Excuse us.
Would these be the pre-Adamites?
Some of these beings are, yes. Other beings are Sumerian beings. We have Atlantean, we have other non-terrestrial species as well. So all of these beings, they essentially are treasure troves for us. Not just us, but other geneticists and people that are working in these programs, because they all contain some of this super DNA. Not all of them, but we can take what we want from them freely without interfering on any laws or regulations with galactics, because they are naturalized. And that is because they existed so long ago and they're essentially property rather than living beings. So we would take genetics from these ancient beings and we would incorporate them into these clones. Now, this would give the clones different abilities. It depends on what DNA we took the matter from. I don't believe we said that properly, but that's okay. You get the gist, I'm sure. So my friend was able to incorporate this DNA, and also his consciousness was able to be integrated with the body properly, which sometimes doesn't happen. Sometimes it's only a partial consciousness that's able to come through, fractal aspect of that being. And when that happens, then that's easily conditioned, because it's not strong. It's only one part of the being. And sometimes they want just fractals, actually quite often. Because when that happens, the fractal is only one piece of a larger, it's like one petal of the whole flower, essentially, if you want to think of it like that. And if you just have one petal, then it's easy to train and condition. But if you have the whole flower, like my friend, then you have to train each petal for a particular task or agenda in order to overcome its natural conditioning. So we hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. So to elaborate more on that, you mentioned that you used some of your own DNA to make Joe, and that when he came out of the cloning tank, he was 20 years old. This reminds me of some of the Leaxodons that are made down in Black Shield in Antarctica. Could you confirm, is Joe a Leaxodon super soldier?
No, he wasn't, but he did have great ability. He would be in the light soldier class because of his ability to oscillate through dimensional frequencies. There's a couple things that depend what class you'll be put into. There's several, one moment, we just have to move the body here. There are several limitations and considerations when putting one into a classification of soldier. One is non-terrestrial genetic component. That is the amount of galactic DNA, we'll say. You'll say galactic, but it could be ancient human DNA as well. It is the hierarchy of the soul. What level is the soul at? Can the soul leave the body when it wants? All of these things are very important. So the higher the soul, the more conscious it is. And its ability to do more things is greater because it's closer to prime creator, if you want to call it that. So the more conscious the being, the greater its ability to pull information and ability from said place and incorporate that into our reality. And as it does this, so we think we've explained the subject.
Yeah, thank you very much. So did you get in trouble for blowing up the facility that Joe was created in? And what did they do to you?
I was very fortunate that they did not find out it was me. I was more of a mastermind behind the plan. Now, Joe, on the other hand, he was able to work with my help to do such a thing. If they had caught me, I would be dead, period. There'd be no deathbed confession.
Well, they eventually got you. They gave you cancer, but well, we can say that for later. Do you think the people in Area 51 have since continued this particular type of research, even going on to this day? And yeah, to perfect it, where they were trying to take out the human component and turn people into human robots.
We're getting a bit emotional because of what you just said. We understand that there are many others in the same situation that I was in, that I knew stuff that other people wanted to know. I couldn't tell them, even my best friends. I kept it secret for such a long time. Now, there's so many of us. You can't imagine how many people. And because of that, there are other people that may be watching this program that know exactly what I'm talking about, that want to do their part and send the message. But it's the constraints because of, the family issue. We're not allowed to do anything. And we feel seriously conflicted. And to all my friends out there that are on their last legs, to all those people that are just waiting to die so that they can be free, I'll just say this. You're already free. Sorry, we apologize.
I'm
Can
following
you
you.
repeat the question, please?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can follow up on more about the next one is to get over the moral compass. It is my belief that they're now integrating more cybernetics into these clone bodies so that they could destroy human compassion and make them more soul, I guess you call it soulless, even though they got a soul. What can you tell us about these type of super soldiers and the cybernetics that they're now using, perhaps as a basis from your original initial research?
So many of the implants that they have within the system of the clone body, they are very variable. As you can imagine, they're like a computer program, and a computer program can do something, whatever it wants, whatever it's programmed to do. Now, some of these implants are able to turn off chemicals within the brain, and some of these chemicals control human emotions. Some of them control serotonin, endorphins, adrenaline. So these implants are designed to control to a further degree past the conditioning. So you must understand that we have the clone exists. Now we have to consider the soul. We have to consider, is it a fractal, things of this nature, and then the galactic component. With that in mind, some of beings are able to be enhanced further with augmentation. Now, as they're augmented, they are able to go further with the conditioning, with the reinforcement. So augmentation can be used to reinforce conditioning by electroshock, by causing the body to be disrupted when a command is not fulfilled. And it can cause fields of the body to become distorted when one's not following protocol. So you can only imagine what you can do with a shock collar on a dog. But when the shock collar is inside of you, it's another story. And these beings are not treated well. So.
All right, thank you. And I'm assuming that some of these military grunts you described at Area 51, the ones that are especially brutal, perhaps were an offshoot of this project. Is that?
No.
No.
No, we wouldn't waste resources on such a menial task like that. Now, I'm not saying living humans are menial. I'm saying that each one of these clones is a significant investment. And the way that these NAZI people look at things, it's all about resources. And people can just create other people relatively easily, as far as they're concerned. But clones require resources. So they would just use normal people. Some of them would have augmentation, and very few would be clones. The only ones that would be clones would be ones with particular objectives that were protecting high-ranking individuals, or ones that are responsible for maintaining the security of non-terrestrials on base.
Thank you. Do you think the people at Area 51, or at least some of them, will review this video?
Yes, I'm sure they will. And that's why I gave my message to my friends. Because although you may think that your channel is reaching only a small audience, there are people across the globe who watch the program. And some of these individuals are people who actually know things. We are very happy that you are doing your job. You're doing an excellent job. Some of the information that comes through is not quite right, but that's okay. It's still coming out. And the truth will come clear. it will shine.
Okay.
And the light that we're expressing to all the people right now is just an extension of the light within yourself. So
Thank you. Yeah. So do you have a message to your fellow colleagues at Area 51 or even ALPHACOM for them today?
well, to all my friends, I know I've been with you in different aspects of my life. Now, our legacy is what we leave behind, but it's also the lives that we've touched. Now, touching a life can come in a very simple way, or it can be a deep, meaningful thing. But the ability to touch someone's life is a true honor. Because if you can touch someone, then you can change their reality. You can change how they experience their life and how they see the world. So if I can share my little bit of light and anyone can see it, then that's a good job on my part.
And do you happen to have a message for Joe if he happens somehow to find this video?
If Joe finds this video, that will be a very funny thing. I think that if he finds this video, he's probably not looking online for this kind of stuff. He honestly would probably be looking as far away from this kind of content as he can. But if he does stumble upon it because he's heard my name, Joe, I love you. I wish you the best. Take care of yourself. I can't say anything specific because of his location. And yeah, he's changed his name and things of this nature. So I love you, Joe. Take care of yourself. Do the best you can with what you have.
Okay. I might wrap this up with one last question here, so we can let David come back. But
Sure.
after my stint at working for the NAZIs and being kicked out of the MCC, I was transferred to S4 and re-aged into an infant in preparation to be inserted into a majestic selected surrogated family. Did you know me during your time at S4? And I would have been very young. Very, very young.
Now, you may have slipped under the umbrella of these children. Yeah, they were on another branch of the base. And although I did some traveling in my day, I didn't remember seeing any, well, I've seen many young children on base, but I can't remember seeing your particular face. So I apologize. I understand that this would be a reformation, excuse us, a reformation for you. And it would mean a lot because it would just reinforce your understanding that this shit is all real. And trust me, it is. To all the people that are listening right now, this channeling, this is real. This, because I'm not alive, I'm dead. And I'm still able to talk to you. How is that possible? Science can't explain that. Physics can't explain that. Even quantum theory, that's not even touching the tip of the iceberg regarding this content. Now, thank you for all that you guys are doing. Scientists I'm referring to, but I'll also thank you to you, James, for running your program, to doing your part and helping with the consciousness of humanity, because we can only go forward from here.
All right. Well, before we discontinue, actually, I found two quick questions. So then we can, I promise you I won't keep you much longer. Robert Lazar was a physicist who worked at the secret military base Area 51 at S4. He also confirmed your testimony. He was then immediately discredited by a media campaign and the cabal, and they even managed to remove his diplomas from MIT. What was your relationship to Bob Lazar, if any?
Bob, we stumbled upon each other in the cafeteria. There were some Actually, I did know Bob. And although he worked on craft, my work was on craft as well, but to a different capacity. He worked on the physical shell of the craft, we'll say, and a lot of my work was on the innards. Now, because of that, he would do his part and then I would do my part. But there was some overlapping time where I was able to see him. And there was some holographic, just to describe this a little bit better for your understanding, the holographic pods that we go into that have our particular memories of our family and things of this nature. They're designed for us. But as a sweet treat, sometimes we'd be able to exchange our information with a friend. And I would get to see his family and he would get to see mine. And through the holographic means, it's really close, intimate. I don't mean sexual. I mean, you can really get close to somebody by understanding them at such a deep level in this regard. And I had the opportunity to meet his friends and family once. So, Bob, I love you, man. He's great. He's a kind soul. And yeah.
All right. So last quick question. Hopefully this will be a quick question. What does J typing omega E delta 2 stand for? I mean, well, I know it stands for Joe, but what are those terms? Yeah. What do they mean?
J typing, is that what you said?
J typing omega E delta 2, otherwise known as Joe. How do they come up with that? The omega E delta 2.
Oh, well, we each have our mark that we leave, us scientists. We like to hide these Easter eggs in different places to leave our mark on our tech, on our creation. And this is one of these marks. Now, it's essentially a call sign for the scientist that was working with him. And although that wasn't my designation for him, it was a mark of a fellow scientist and a mark that he wears proudly. And he's left on several pieces of technology that he's created.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Michael Wolf. And yeah, well, hopefully we'll see you someday. Come back, maybe when the planet gets out of their first contact event, and they won't kill off people like you anymore, and people be more appreciative for all the work you've done.
Well, let's not wait that long because things happen as you make them happen.
I understand. Thank you very much. All right, we'll see you later then. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Are we finished?
Hi, David. Are you back?
No.
Come on. You want to just go ahead and end it? And you want to do private session?
Well, we think it's best if we return the channel.
Yeah, go ahead. Bring back David.
Okay, James, it was a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for having me today.
Hmm?
Very well.
Hi, David. Do we need to throw some cold water in your face? Or are you going to be okay?
I'm okay. I just need a moment to come back.
All right. So, yeah. So David's website is davidlotherington.com. Yeah.
Yep.
So you can go sign up to get a session with David because he graciously volunteered his time today to do this. And we want to say thank you very much for doing that. This information will be much appreciated by those in the UFO community who have been following Dr. Michael Wolf for quite a long time. And, you know, his book was what he was forced to write his book as a novel because I mean, of course, this is back in 1996. So, and like I said, it took 15 years. So I guess he would have been started working on that back in 1980. So that was a time in the disclosure community when there's very little information coming out. So he was definitely one of the pioneers in this field. And it's quite a shame that a lot of people try to poo-poo Dr. Michael Wolff. Some people, I don't know if they actually erased his degrees like they did with Bob Lazar, but I did hear about that it was hard for him to confirm he actually had all those diplomas. But yeah, so what do you think?
I think I don't remember a lot of what we just did, but I'm glad if it helps anyone, any of this information helps anybody, I'm really glad to hear. If anyone wants to book a session with me, send me an email. You know, I do a bunch of other stuff besides channeling, and we didn't really get into galactic stuff today. But yeah, if you guys are interested in that, we could talk about that. Anyway, I'm blathering on because I'm still half in and half out. So I'll leave it to you, James.
Right. Well, I still had more questions. I mean, I had more questions about the Nordics because he was also working with Nordics from Altar, and we could even try bringing in his Nordic contact on a video. But so yeah, there was a lot more we could have gone into. So I think maybe we can, if you're willing to do it, to come back again, maybe maybe next month or if you need some more time. But certainly I would like to bring you back on here to follow up. And also, audience members, if you have any there was actually a lot of questions that I couldn't even get through here in the chat. A lot of them were really good. Some of them probably better for Peter the Insider. I know we had some excellent questions about the was it the 1860, 1890 crafts. I don't think Dr. Wolff actually worked on those. I mean, he worked on the ET craft vessels. And there were also other craft vessels other than Roswell. So we could even explore all the incidences. So there, yeah. But anyway, so thank you, audience members. And of course, thank you, David. If you have any other questions, go ahead and put it in the comments section once we get off this live stream, and we'll see if we can throw that in there in the follow-up. But yeah, did you have any other final comments?
Yeah, I think this is great. Thank you very much for having me, James, and thank you for everyone coming to watch us live or perhaps afterwards. I hope that what information came forward is beneficial to you in some way, shape, or form. There's a lot of information out there about everything. So it's really your choice to pick which kind of information you take within yourself. He's still kind of here, so. Sorry, but anyway, thanks for having me, guys. If you want me to come back again, just leave something in the description below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, right?
Yeah, and be sure to visit Super Soldier Talk and also my other website, Neological Tech, to support the work that I do. And yeah, all the links are going to be in the description, or the will be once I get off this. So we'll see you all next time. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye, David, and bye, honestly.
See you guys.